morning. Friday. Gotta get down on a Friday. Friday morning, October the 25th. Rise and shine. I'm Wesh 2 first warning meteorologist Eric Burris. This is Coffee Talk. We get together 7 days a week, chat about what's doing in the world of weather. This morning, just as expected, there are some pockets of fog. It's not too bad. Here's a live look outside, at least if you're watching the live broadcast. Here's a live look outside in the tourist district. A little bit of haze. Not too bad, though, really and truly. Let's take you over to Tavares, see what's doing here. Lake Dora, that's a beautiful, beautiful shot, but you can see there's some of that fog around, right? But that sun, that commanding sun. Downtown Orlando looking great. Let me take you to Ocala, and then we'll end over in Port Canaveral because I'm all over the place here. It's pretty. That's pretty. All right. Oh, look at that. One of the cruise ships. It's a lovely, lovely morning. When we look at the visibility numbers, I'll tell you, visibility, have to type the word. When we look at the visibility numbers, it's not bad. I can promise, though, like when I was driving my son to school this morning, there was definitely some fog. So there's a little pockets. You can see Winter Haven's down to 3-mile visibility. The rest of us are looking pretty good. And the ceilings, really not bad either. Nothing that's below like 2,000 feet. So it's little pockets, we'll say, of fog here or there. That's all. All right. First warning, live Doppler radar scanning around, tracking some gook. I'll loop it. Yeah, that's gook in the metro. That's not rain. Off the shoreline, couple little sprinkles. Teeny tiny. Not going to bother too bad. Temperatures out the door. Look how beautiful this is. 57 in Ocala. Again, what you're looking at on the map is the live readings. We get that data every 5 minutes versus the ticker is the official hourly. So if it doesn't quite agree. 60 degrees in the Villages. It's 66 right now in Orlando, 62 in Sanford, and 61 in New Smyrna Beach. So it is lovely out this morning. Oh, it's lovely. Forecast today, like yesterday, we're going to go with that like diminished breeze, 5-10 miles an hour. Temperatures climbing beautifully, 83 1 p.m., 85 degrees by 3 p.m. So all in, looking good. And then into tonight, little by little, we'll drop on off from there. So not a bad one. Not a bad one at all. Forecast high temperatures around Central Florida. There you go. Mid 80s in Orlando. Average high is 83. So we're a little warmer than average. It's not. You can't go and get too frustrated about it, though, right? 86 in the Villages, 82 Daytona Beach. We looking good? Questions about our local forecast? This is good. This is really good weather. Today, it's going to be a beautiful day heading out to the theme parks today. Disney opened. Magic Kingdom opened up about 3.5 minutes ago. Gorgeous day to head that direction. Lower 80s. Temperatures are going to be fantastic through about 6 p.m. I would assume at 6 p.m. if they're closing, that means that they have a not so scary party tonight. Either way, I mean, that's beautiful, right? This weekend's forecast. Let's chat about it. Both Saturday and Sunday are looking excellent. That also means if you've got plans to head out to the UCF game, I can promise the forecast is going to be great. We'll be there unless my son continues to misbehave, my older one. If that's the case, I told him we're not going to the UCF game if you decide to misbehave. Anyway, Spirit Splash is today. That means it's homecoming, right? Look at that, 83. I'm gonna have the dad hat on if we're out there tomorrow. It's gonna be a beautiful, beautiful day. Your weekend forecast, my friends, doesn't get much better than this, right? So that's kind of where we're at locally. Let's see here. When it comes to when it comes to the river levels, of course, that's something that we've been monitoring. We're finally below major flood stage along the St. John's. Finally, little by little, we're dropping after Hurricane Milton came through. Still in moderate flood stage in many locations. So we need to continue with this drier air. Thankfully, we do have dry air in the forecast these next couple of days. We look to the weekend forecast. High pressure, the dominant weather influencer for us, right? High pressure's axis kind of adjusts a little bit into Sunday. And as it begins to fade, there's going to be a weak little front, may try to sneak in and just kind of keep us great. But all that means, my friends, seriously, all that means is we've got gorgeous, gorgeous weather these next couple of days. Look at our 7-day forecast. Okay. Next week, sure, maybe a few showers around, but really beautiful weather, right? Yeah, highs in the low to mid 80s, morning lows in the 60s to 70s. And asking about Halloween, you shall receive. Here you go. Nice warm afternoon, but for trick or treating, upper 70s. Listen, I just remember being the Fonzie at like 85 degrees one year. Like leather jacket, knocking on the door. Hey, like, don't judge. But for trick or treaters, yeah, we're looking great. So that's where we're at locally. Any questions, comments, concerns about that before we move on and talk? I know that everybody's here. They want to talk tropics. They want to learn about the tropics. Want to see all the things. All right. Questions about our local forecast? Tiffany says, I was Barbie with the plastic mask. It was so hot. I was suctioned to my face. Oof. That's rough. Carrie, MK alumni here. Will you be at homecoming? I'm not doing homecoming per se, but we talked about doing the little reception tonight, perhaps. I'll be at the game. I'll go loiter, but I'm not officially doing homecoming. Just too much chaos in the world with the hurricanes and all that stuff. I couldn't get it together. Okay, so that's where we're at. Ooh, Nikki, the CO today. That's fun. All right. All right, let's talk tropics, my friends, at 8:07. We didn't waste any time. All right, so out to the tropics. Happy to report there's nothing out there. There's nothing expected to develop over the next 7 days' time. And I know that this is a point of terror for so many of us. This is a point of anxiety for so many of us. If you're new to Coffee Talk, understand it's my goal to be very transparent, to share all the model data, and to give you perspective as best I can, right? I'm not a doctor, but like I try to approach it the same way, which is like we're going to look at the information together. We'll discuss it, and that way you can understand. I'm not going to ever withhold information from you. I'll share my opinion, etc., etc., etc. Okay. There have been I woke up this morning and looked on Facebook, and there was like a post about like the big bad scary GFS. I have shown you the big bad scary GFS, and I've also shown you all the other models. So it's important to note that there's always something to track tropically. Over the next 7 days' time, we do not have any expectation of tropical development. Beyond that, models are starting to wake up to an idea. So let's look at, and I'm only showing the GFS first because I always show the GFS first. High pressure in control over us now, so that's gorgeous. But notice here, this is October 31st, so this is Halloween. The GFS like popping a low down in the southern Caribbean and popping a low over the Turks and Caicos, and then Fujiwara-ing them around each other, doing some kind of funky stuff. That should tell you almost everything you need to know. Let's watch it again. Like, somebody needs to do like the do 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 do, like a nice waltz for them to dance around. That's not probably going to happen. So the model at this point, all it's saying to me is, man, there may be some low pressure developing. Okay, let's go back one model run to the 00Z. Low pressure, firing up, still with some weird Fujiwara stuff going up the East Coast. To me, it's still, and let's look at the timing here. when was this? This is like November 5th. So it's like election day around. The current run end has, that's like November 3rd, November 4th, November 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. We'll go back 2 model runs. This is the 18Z from last night. Some weird Fujiwara stuff, and then moving out November 5th, 6th. Okay, so the GFS is doing all kinds of weird stuff. Come here. Let's talk. The GFS, and I said this yesterday on like my little short video, the GFS has a vorticity bias. Okay, so the fact that it wants to develop something is not the craziest thing I've ever seen. The pattern does want to support something. So I think that still, and we've been looking at this for a while here on Coffee Talk, right? I think still my thought and my takeaway from this is absolutely unchanged in that something's probably going to want to get going. Outside of that, timing impacts absolutely have not clarified at all. This is the Madden-Julian oscillation. Okay, and for those of you that are unfamiliar, essentially the idea is, how do we have a higher confidence that something tropical will try to get going? The Madden-Julian oscillation basically tells us when the atmosphere will really help with lift and with spin. And this color table is so perfect. The green is where you have lift and spin. The brown is where you don't. So, for example, right now, look at the Atlantic Basin. It's like brown. We have no tropical systems around. Why? Because there's no added lift and spin. Where are we developing tropical things in the Pacific? Where it's green. So that makes sense. But watch through time how around the 29th and the 30th, we start to see things turn. And by, look at that, early November, we're green in the Gulf, the Caribbean, the Atlantic. So the pattern does favor a complete shift around. And I would suspect that atmospherically, now that we have that added lift and spin, that added extra panache, I would suspect we're probably going to have the pattern susceptible to development there, which is why the GFS is probably picking up on it. It's saying, yeah, it's good. We got some. It doesn't know what it's going to do. It just knows it's probably going to try to develop something. Okay. So anyway, that's the GFS single run operational models. Let's switch over. Let's look at the European. Okay. I know I'm throwing a lot at you. If you have questions, now we can, we can talk. All right. If you have questions, let me know. Nancy says, I really can't take another one. On the plus side, it isn't 4,000 degrees out like it was when Charlie and friends came through. I get it. I actually also feel like I can't take another one. I just can't. There's too much that our state has gone through. So many of our neighbors have gone through, and hopefully we don't. Statistically, we shouldn't. But, statistics, you know what they say. So, look, we're tracking this, and I'm not tracking this for hype. I want to make sure you understand. I'm tracking this to be able to show you what the data says, to interpret it together, give you my 2 cents, right? What do you really think? Okay, all right, moving on. So 6C European only goes out 90 hours, so it's not going to go out far enough. But let's tap into the 0Z to go beyond to 240. Right? So it at the very end is starting to develop something in the Caribbean around November 4th. I would just pause for a second and add, when we looked at the BSR yesterday, if you recall, the BSR had something in the Gulf, but it was later. It was like the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. So I betcha, and I was talking to Kellyanne, I was talking to Marquise, I was talking to Tony about this. Now that we're getting further out with the European and it's sniffing something around the 4th, much slower, much later, I would bet at this point that it will be more of a developing around the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and then lifting up the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th. So I think the GFS is probably a little too fast. And that's why it's not that's why it's fakakta, right? But something probably will try to develop around the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, ninth in that time frame. That's what the BSR is showing. That teleconnection kind of gives us that idea. So to that point, I would suspect once we get that far out, we'll have a much clearer perspective. And certainly the European, that's November 4th. Actually, it's the evening of November 3rd. That's 8 p.m. November 3rd, right? So anyway, it's trying to figure something. And if we were to go just to the control ensemble, which kind of could give us, yeah, I mean, kind of funny. It brings it to the Yucatan around November 7th and then kind of gets picked up and pulled, which climatologically that makes sense along a front. Around the ninth. The timeline would work out accurately with the BSR. Climatologically, that would work out. That's a big cold front over Florida. Cold front drives it. Maybe it brings it right back across Cuba, stays south of us, that sort of thing. So I don't hate what the Euro is showing. I think the Euro is probably doing the better job between the Euro and the GFS at the moment, if I'm 100% honest with you. European AI, this is the 00Z. Sloppy low getting picked up, pulled away from us. Climatologically, that's what should happen. And then look at that nice cold front there. Climatologically, that's what should happen. We go to the 18Z Euro AI. Weak. Cold front picks it up, kind of moves it over Florida, but it's super weak. 12Z Euro AI. Yeah. So I think I like the Euro. I think I like the Euro's mentality here. I think the GFS is incorrect. GFS ensembles, I'll put on all the low locations. So starting to see, what is that? That's October 30th, 31st, starting to see lows in the Southern Caribbean. And then they're just kind of scattering all about, right? If we look at it in a different perspective, there's the lows bubbling up. Yeah, kind of all over the place. That's the 4th, 5th. I think that's wrong. Look at the European ensembles. And again, the 6Z doesn't go out far enough, so we have to go back to this to the 0Z. Here's October 31st, a few lows. By the 1st of November, 2nd of November, it's popping lows. And it's keeping the vast majority of them away from us. Climatologically, that's the way it should go. I think the Euro has a better handle. Whether something comes here or not, I think the GFS is early. And that I think is the key here. Okay? I really do think that that's the key here. Now, when we look, and again, this is all statistics, right? But like when we look at the typical motion and formation during the month of November, this is an area that does develop tropical systems. During the month of November, they typically cross Cuba, the Bahamas, and go the heck out to sea because we have cold fronts. So it's going to depend on timing, when this were to try to develop, and it's going to also depend on if there's fronts in that timing. Okay, so it's too early to tell. Anything other than the pattern is absolutely looking favorable for tropical development down that way. And that's why we've highlighted this area. Notice there's nothing to see down there. Caribbean has but a cloud in the sky. But ensemble models are showing consistency. And then, a lot of people have been asking, like, are the waters warm? Yeah, this is the tropical cyclone heat potential. So, of the entire basin, this is the area to watch this time of year. Okay? All right. Elizabeth says you can't see fronts. I mean, on model data, you can interpret them by little air ripples of low pressure. But in terms of just like broader, I, you know, it, fronts show up, but it's, remember, we're talking 10, 15 days out. Models don't do a great job, you know. Arch says there's already TV channels making people panic here in Orlando. I can only control myself. That's it, right? Like I can't control other people, even on my own team. And I think my own team has been doing a fine job of making sure to share information. Now, granted, we go farther in depth here on Coffee Talk, not in a manner of hyping at all, but rather in a manner of I've got a half an hour, so I have the time to get into the nitty gritty. And so that's what we're going to do. Am I worried? No. You know what I'm more focusing on? This is what I'm more focusing on. The fact that in just mere days, we're falling back. This is what I'm focusing on. Daylight saving time ends November 3rd. Y'all ready? But, yeah. Should you be worried about the tropics? No. I'm going to share the information with you. I'll always give you the data. But should we be worrying? No. And I would also add this is kind of an interesting thing, okay? There have been, so we talked about how November tropical systems, there's fewer systems. Florida has gotten hit by 3 different hurricanes during the month of November. Okay, granted, one was just a couple of years ago in Hurricane Nicole. It's funny, so many of the graphics in my weather system show like the last hurricane to strike Florida in the month of November was Hurricane Kate in 1985. And it's like, well, I could tell I built that more than 2 years ago. Yankee in 1935 was a beast. Kate in 1985 was a beast. Nicole, we remember what a beast Nicole was in 2022. Um, Statistically, we should go a long time before getting hit with a hurricane during the month of November. Okay. The vast majority of them follow climatology, which again, shift way out this direction. Okay. But interesting stuff. When we open the envelope from hurricanes to just tropical systems, this is kind of interesting. There's all the paths of named storms that have struck Florida during the month of November. And when I looked at the named storms database, 8% of all named storms in the month of November strike Florida. Which, when I saw that, I was like, oh, that's pretty low. Marquise was like, that's pretty high. But that's still like every 10 years we get a named storm in Florida. Right? It's been 2. So statistics would tell us that we're okay. But of course, statistics are not the way that the tropics work. So all this to say that for right now, there is no development expected over the next 7 days' time. I'm going to tell you the same thing I tell my kids. Calm down. Okay? I showed you all the data. I hope all the data helps your brain feel better. Okay? All right. Now that we're done with that, what questions do you have? Questions, comments, concerns? How you doing? We're okay. Hurricane season is going to end. All right. Shelly says, thanks, Dad. I got you, baby. I got you. Yoga and weather. Any cold fronts to hype? Let's see. Let me pull up the old raw GFS. Stand by. So the only problem with looking at the raw GFS right now is it's definitely garbly gooked from this tropical mess. So like you see the highs in the 70s there, November 3rd, November 4th. That's the GFS trying to figure itself out. So there's that. Yeah, Blue Goose says weather ASMR. I never understood that whole thing. I could put on like thunderstorm noises and we could listen to that. So at the moment, no significant cold fronts. I think that once the GFS and the Euro, they try to figure out whatever's going to happen here, then we could get there. Yeah. Delene's asking, name storm aside, sloppy rain, any rain totals? We're nowhere near a point where we could try to figure out the rain totals. No. No, we're not there. A lot of you are asking about the BSR. Let me get that dialed up here. Yeah. So what's interesting about the BSR? I'll just show it to you. Like what's interesting about the BSR here is that the BSR is still showing a pretty strong signal. But the timing is not what the models are saying. So if we were to just look at this, what is that? It's like the 11th, 12th, 13th ish. So it may be that the GFS is just going to sit and think and sit and think and sit and think and sit and think, right? So I don't know. And we've been looking at this on the BSR for a while. If you remember when I pull up the BSR on like the GFS, like this, there it is. Right there's the signal. It's right there. And then you got a cold front, high pressure. And then like a sloppy storm system there. When would that be? That's like the 18th of November with a nice cold front afterward. Slop. Ugh, what are you? Looks like the 18th through the 22nd is going to be kind of an active week for us. Lots of little storm systems moving through. And then that's as far out as that goes. That's the day before Thanksgiving. Warm. So it looks like the day before Thanksgiving is warm, and that's another cold front out near Texas. So the initial look for now is it looks like we may have a warm Thanksgiving with like a Black Friday type cold front. Just looking at the BSR. But yeah, that week of the 18th kind of looks busy. Interesting. Interesting. I always like nerding out on long range stuff. You know me. You know me. But for now, simmer down now. Okay? All right. Amy, do you know where I can find out what the low pressure was for Brevard when Milton came through? I think it affected my son's special needs. The Hurricane Center is going to have like the data, but as far as the station, like the local weather stations go, you could call the National Weather Service in Melbourne. They could probably tell you like what the lowest register pressure was at like Titusville or at the Melbourne Weather Service office. Yeah. All right. That cold front over Texas is 48 days post Milton. We don't know, Matt, yet what the cycle duration is yet. So until we figure that out. But your point is valid. Like, we do need to start watching to kind of get an idea here. And we don't know if Milton was part of the old or the new pattern. Like, that's the other struggle, right? I love cold fronts. They're special to me because they form just a couple of 100 feet. It's cool to watch. I don't quite know what you mean by that. They form in just a couple of 100 feet. I guess I just don't know what you mean. Skylar already talked about it. Somebody was late to class. Looking beautiful. Gonna have to wear the dad hat. I am at least. Lots of sunshine. Highs in the 80s. It's gonna be nice. All right. Matt says I vote old. Yeah, you and me both. I don't want to deal with that. Although that week of the 18th is like there's a couple of pieces of energy there. Yeah. All right. Should I be worried about my cruise to the Bahamas November 1st through the 4th? Will waters be rocky? Alicia, it doesn't look terrible for now. I wouldn't worry too much about it. Yeah. If It's okay to be late, Skylar. Yeah, if I was you, Alicia, I'd be so excited about the cruise I wouldn't even care. And those ships are so big. And remember, the Bahamas really insulate wave action, so I think you'll be okay. All right. Questions, comments, concerns about anything? How we looking? How we looking? Do not forget to donate to shelters, both here and in North Carolina. Things are still hard for many people. That Betty, you're so right. You're so right. All right. What about the 23rd of November? Zareen, I'm going as far as I can. That's like a month out. We're starting to get a gist of things. We don't know it just yet. All right. Anything else? Question, comments, concerns? We track that. Yeah, exactly right, Chris. Exactly. All right, people. Looking like a great weekend. Let's just enjoy that. I will see you on Wesh 2 News at noon and 4. Does that sound good? Yeah? All right. Be the sunshine in someone else's day. Thank you so much for hanging out for Coffee Talk. I will see you at noon and 4 on TV. And I'll do another little reel, one of those quick little deals.